I heard that you are a very great musician.
Not great, but I practice music, Carnatic music as well as Hindustani music,
Both, both
both,
types.
both styles.
So, what actually you are doing? I heard that you are a biomedical engineer.
Right,
So, as a profession, you are continuing it in USA.
right.
At the same time, your passion is music. So, it's very interesting to know how you balance these both things.
So it's a very interesting sequence of events,
Yeah.
if you want. So basically, when I was growing up through school days and then engineering and all that, during my engineering days, I actually stopped learning for a few years. My entire focus was all academic. I wanted to pursue electronics engineering and do a career in that. For some reason or the other, I decided to go to the US to pursue my master's in biomedical engineering. While I was there, I landed up in Akron, Ohio. So Akron is about 30 kilometers from Cleveland. So Cleveland is known for Carnatic Music Festival.
Oh,
Musicians from all over the world come to Cleveland, and there is a 10 10-day festival that happens in April time frame. So that was happening, and I happened to attend that. And I got reconnected with my guru, Neyveli Santanagopalan, with whom I was studying in the 90s. So I met with him and asked him if I can start learning again.
oh,
So I started pursuing it again after a little bit of a gap. I was still singing, but I had given some concerts in Pune where I grew up. I was singing. I had sung for dance a little bit here and there, but it had come to a standstill when I was doing the engineering. After that, again it picked up and I started practicing. Neyveli sir connected me with Sri Tiruvarur Girish, who is the grandson of T. Banda. So I started learning with him, and I've been continuing to study with him since 2008 time frame. Uh, because of that, also because being away from your own culture, you want to be closer to it. So it's a little ironic, right? So you want to you are away from it, but then you miss it. So then you practice harder.
that feeling of missing as
Feeling
a
of
motivation
missing,
also.
yeah, it works towards it. It helps you towards, motivates you towards working on it harder and harder. So I started doing it. I started teaching in 2009 in Cleveland.
How the Westerners are taking the or Carnatic or Hindustan music.
So Western audiences, to be honest, is still very limited for our music. Be it Carnatic music or Hindustani music, it is a very limited audience that comes. Now, if you ask Carnatic musicians, they will say that, oh, there have been great musicians that have come from the West. And for example, John Higgins, you may have heard his name. He learned Carnatic music from Brunama. I want to say back in the 70s or 80s, something like that. But there are very few examples like that. So it is still pretty limited. Our community tends to guard it very safely within our own circle. So the Western audiences find it hard to break in. There are efforts that happen. For example, I work for a dance company in the US, which works on productions that are appealing to Western audiences as well. So it doesn't really talk about our spiritual practices per se, but it addresses larger issues, larger global issues. It addresses social issues, things like that. So I think that is necessary to break through to the Western audiences, and then through that medium, then we can introduce them to our spiritual concepts, Hindu concepts, or whatever it may be. So I think there needs to be some sort of bridging that happens. People are attempting to do it.
That type of bridging is started.
It has started. There is a lot of resistance from our own artists, because we don't think it is pure music. We feel like we are diluting it for them. But there are ways to bridge it a little bit and bring them in. Because Western audiences in general are very open. As long as you are ready to give it to them the way they are able to comprehend, they will come. But if you say, oh, you are not going to get this kind of thing, then nobody is going to, they are not going to feel welcome. So there is a little bit of effort that we have to put from our side. So both my father and mother, they both studied Carnatic music. My grandmother used to play the violin, and my father also learned the violin. So interestingly, when I was learning Hindustani music, he would actually sit with me and learn along with that. And while I was learning, my mother learned violin. She used to play the veena before that. So there's a lot of interest. Not professional musicians, but they encouraged and supported a lot. So
So music including vocal and the instrument, both you got
there
interest.
was exposure. So there was no it was not distinguished. Like vocal is primary, instrument is secondary. That was not there. So I learned tabla. I learned Hindustani vocal music, Carnatic vocal music. So all three also.
So when you learn both styles of music, Carnatic and Hindustani, it doesn't any tussle comes in between.
It happens.
It happens.
So you have to get into the mindset. There is a little bit of mental conditioning that you have to do when you perform one style or the other. Like for example, today I was singing one abhang, right? Generally, if I'm doing a Carnatic concert and if I want to present a Hindustani piece, I do it at the end. So then I don't have to come back.
You can switch over.
That mindset is already
Switch
gone
over
there,
to
so
that.
then I don't have to come back.
Coming back and forth.
Coming back and forth is hard. The style is different. The mindset is different.
different. Equally good and great.
Absolutely.
There is no only
There is no, so the
analysts may differ in their opinion.
correct. So, but there are certain areas of strength in certain styles. Other styles will have other areas of strengths. Like in Carnatic music, there is a lot of technical aspects, mathematical aspects are there. We tend to present more ragas within the same concert. There is a lot more energetically. There is a lot more going on. In Hindustani, generally we take one raga and we'll present it for 45 minutes. Within the same raga, we'll present 2 or 3 compositions. Carnatic style, that is not there.
Is there any raga, male raga, female raga?
In Hindustani, there is a
There is a
concept of ragas and raginis in Hindustani. Raginis in Hindustani. Carnatic, we don't do it. Maybe there used to be. I don't know. Like for example, in Hindustani, there are certain times of the day in which you are supposed to sing certain ragas. In Carnatic also it is there, but we don't follow it strictly. In Hindustani, they follow it much more strictly.
You were visiting guest lecture on music in different universities.
For Cleveland Institute of
So,
Music.
what is your experience? Whether the Westerners are taking music, in what spirit they are taking?
So generally these lessons will happen as special one-off sessions for them. Introduction to Indian music or introduction to Indian film music or something like that. So I'll give a presentation and try to give it in their language. Talk about their scales and then correlate that with our style and try to present it from that point of view. So they are able to receive it better. The idea, at least for me, is for Western audiences to think about Indian music not as an exotic art form, but as a serious classical art form which has actually existed longer than their Western music. Ours has existed for centuries. It is not some exotic art form which they do for enjoyment. It is much more than that. It's a spiritual experience. There is a lot we are doing. So to get them to understand that concept, it's a little bit.
So, gradually Western people are taking in.
Yeah,
What-
they tend to take it. They tend to take it in if it is presented to them more scientifically, more logically.
Logically.
Yeah, no
Not devotional. What we present is in a
devotional aspect also can be presented logically, but there are many barriers that you have to make sure that you recognize when you are speaking to them, and then you are going beyond.
So with the reasoning, with the scientific approach you have to present.
Correct.
Then
For example, if we talk about how we do the gamakas in Carnatic music, to explain to them, we talk in terms of semitones and how we got these. We have these 22 shrutis between lower and upper within one octave. We have 22 shrutis. How did these 22 shrutis come about? It is all based upon vibration of a string. Like you can do cycle of fourths, cycle of fifths. So you can scientifically, if you explain it to them, then then it makes sense
It
to them.
is straight early.
Correct. Otherwise, they will say that, oh, this is off key, because they're used to the equitemperamental scale, which the piano uses. We use notes that are in between when we slide and glide and all that. So for them to comprehend that and to recognize that it is actually authentic and we are not randomly moving up and down. A little bit of explaining is
You
necessary.
are doing a great work. So you are along with the Talavadhyas, you are also learned the Talavadhyas,
Yeah.
violin, I think.
So I did
Mridangam,
tabla, I
tabla
played,
and mridangam.
and mridangam.
So it is additional support for musician. Huh?
Absolutely. I feel that every vocalist should learn at least one other instrument. Elementary knowledge of one melody instrument and learning a percussion instrument to the level of playing, or vice versa.
That helps.
That is necessary
That makes
for
a
every.
complete artist.
Correct.
To become a complete
Not-
artist, you should know the related.
You should know all that. And not only to appreciate your accompanists on stage, but to be able to appreciate what they are playing and to be able to use that towards your own music. It is necessary. Nowadays, there is a lot of cross germination that is happening between concepts. Like Mridangam, they'll play some mathematical concepts. That same thing can be used when you do Swara Prasar, for example. So
So
there are things that can be.
you are running a Sangeeta school there.
Yeah.
Music school. How the shape of that school? How,
So the name of our school is Madhuralaya School of Music. It started not in the form that it is today, but there were 3 or 4 of us teachers that we decided to start teaching children together back in 2009 is when we started. Then we split and we started teaching individually. So slowly student base grew. Right now we have about around 40 students, 40 students.
so your whole family is focused on it. I saw your daughter also singing.
Yeah.
Your wife is singing.
Yeah.
And whole family is devoted to.
Correct. So family support, like I was saying, without the family support, it is not possible to do that. And now this family support has gone to the next level. We actively participate in running of the school. In fact, Pavana also teaches. She was teaching certain batches. She is planning to do that again. So fundamental she'll teach, and then when they get to a certain level, she'll pass them on. It is good for the students also to come into that environment, feel belonged, some validation for what you do. Because when you are away from your country, here we see this naturally happening. Everybody is learning music, we attend music concerts, we listen to it on the radio. They don't have that opportunity there. Kids growing up there don't have it. We have to provide that.
How is the response to the parents?
It is good. Parents want to bring them in. They want that sense of community. They want them to feel belong. If your child is learning music, there is nobody else in town that is learning music, then they don't feel validated. Why should we do this? There are so many other things. I can play video games. I can learn Western violin, whatever it is. But this way they feel connected to the culture. There is reason for them to do it. They make friends within our community. It gives them a reason to keep practicing. It's more fun for them. They make friends within that. They grow up together. All that is important.
So, what else hobby you are having other than music or?
So music has become more than a hobby because now it is sort of semi profession. Because I perform also, I tour around and do a little bit of that. Other than that, unfortunately, I don't have any. I wish I could play some sport, but I don't.
You got a gold medal in Sangeet
So
in a graduation
graduation. So
level course.
this is part of Akhil Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya's music examinations. So I think Karnataka state has junior, senior, with those kinds of things. Maharashtra doesn't have that. So this is conducted by Gandharva Mahavidyalaya. So there is Sangeet Visharad. Sangeet Visharad is equivalent to a bachelor's. Sangeet Alankar is equivalent to a master's. So I completed Visharad degree for Carnatic music.
So you got the first rank. What else recognitions or awards you had? Any awards or recognition?
Local competitions, things like that.
So what about your gurus? You learned Hindustani, Carnatic, Tabla, and that means you have got a very good great gurus are in front of you. What feeling you are having with the gurus?
So I was brought up always with the feeling that when you're learning from any guru, my parents obviously would take me to them, and the idea was to completely submit to them. There was no questioning of why am I learning this? Can you teach me this song, that song? None of those questions were supposed to be asked. You just submit to them, and whatever they give you, you imbibe. So I grew up like that, and I'm continuing to do that. So
So you have got a very good guru parampara, I think.
So this is something to be proud of, and I like to tell this. My guru Tirvarur Girish is T. Brinda Amma's grandson. Brinda Amma's great grandmother Kamakshi Ammal was a disciple of Sri Shyama Shastri's son Subbaraya Shastri, who in turn not only learned from his father Shyama Shastri, but he was also a disciple of Tyagaraja Swami and Muthuswami Dikshit. So I can claim to have the direct lineage from all three.
Oh, that is great.
So
Very rarely you want
very
to-
rarely you will find it. So within this family of musicians with whom my Guruji is part of, it is a great opportunity
Yeah.
to learn from, because there are a lot of compositions that came directly from them, which many other musicians don't see. So we have that wealth of compositions in our school. So I try to provide that. I try to give that to my students also.
Then what message you want to give? What message you want to give to the upcoming musicians or those who are pursuing that line?
Right.
Because nowadays people are want shortcut methods.
Correct.
So what do you suggest upcoming musicians?
I can think of two things. One is, if you want to pursue a serious profession, uh, music as a serious profession, and also take up something like engineering or medicine or law or whatever it is as your second profession, or the other way, it is absolutely possible to do it. There is one will not stop you from doing the other. So it is very much possible to do that. That is one. Secondly, as a musician, you have to have integrity with your art. There is a lot of pressure on musicians these days to be able to be presentable,
Yeah.
to sing a lot of mathematical, a lot of kanak in swara prastara, to sing a lot of brigas, to be dazzling.
Yeah.
This sort of gimmicky kind of music is what it becomes if you don't guard yourself from doing that. Instead of that, try to get to the essence of the music. There is a lot to be done there. Listen to older masters, the older musicians. See how they have taken their art seriously and presented it for the sake of the art. Don't learn art for the sake of performing. Learn it for the sake of learning.